is to not just do research, but to take those cool ideas, those brilliant ideas, and bring them to life. So our owner is McMaster University. We also collaborate with the local college and whatnot. But our mission isn't to do the fundamental research. Our mission is to be the bridge between brilliant discovery and brilliant economic impact. So on one end of the bridge is obviously the university, where the ideation comes to life. On the other end of the bridge is the businesses. My job is to create a mechanism whereby researchers, faculty, students that want to impact, bring their ideas to business. My job is to provide a mechanism to do that. Similarly, if industry out there, whether those are companies or governments or agencies that want to take advantage of the intellectual horsepower of academia, my job is to make it easy for them. So you may remember back in college university days, they can be a little bit of a labyrinth knowing who to talk to for any given subject. So my job is to make that simple. I want you to imagine on both ends of the bridge is that Staples easy button. So if you're industry and you want to reach into academia, it's my job to make it easy. And if you're in academia and you want to reach industry, my job is to make it easy. And the goal is to foster the transition of ideas from here to there, from ideation to reality. So we are located, again, close to the center of the universe and in Hamilton. Well, the way to think about this stuff, and then I'm going to argue that this is a case for any research park. What's the difference between a research park and a university? Research job is to be the bridge to industry. But the researchers in a university are not trying to solve problems on a local level. The example I give, our researchers are not trying to solve cancer for Hamilton. They're trying to solve cancer for the world. And therefore, as a bridge, we can't just bridge to what's ever local. We have to bridge to partners throughout the globe that are most applicable to take things to life. In the context of aerospace, it's great to have an idea wherever that generates. But you then have to think about where are the right partners that can take most advantage of that. Sometimes that'll be in your backyard, but more often than that, it'll be around a global perspective. And so part of the park's job is to have global relationships so that when we have a research or a patent or any piece of IP that has global applicability, we can connect it. We do that through partnerships with other research parks, with entities such as law firms or accounting firms that have a global network. And our job is to make sure those ideas connect with the folks that it can have the biggest impact, and frankly, the fastest impact. Of the park, if I was going to say kind of the first takeaway, and it was made reference to the National Aviation Research Park, is what I want you to think of as universities and colleges and their associated research parks are a resource for all industry when they want to advance ideas. Whether you're looking for ideas to enhance your product or enhance your processes, or you're looking for talent to better operate, I want you to think of universities and colleges for that. For the longest time, universities and colleges had a focus on tenure, so researchers were off trying to achieve tenure. And I think everybody's familiar with that. But there's been a giant shift in academia over the last 15 years, that really the measure of success is how much of an impact the new ideas have come to life, and hence the proliferation of research parks and whatnot. So kind of the first message to get out there is that these universities, whether it's our university or our research park, are open for business and available for you. The trick is to find the ones that are most applicable to you. If we talk about aerospace is huge, right? So if you're looking at a specific area, it doesn't necessarily have to be the one down the street. I'll give you a frame of reference. We focus on advanced manufacturing. So we won't necessarily be the designers of the next generation wing of an aircraft, but we do work on advanced materials. So the materials used in that wing could very well come from McMaster University. So it's really important for you to think about what is the nature of the technology you're looking and who's your partner. And they may be around the corner, but they may be across the globe. What I would tell you is that wherever you are, if you go to your research park, we are all connected. And if they don't have that expertise around the corner, they will know where to find it and they can reach out to a global network. So I want you to be aware that that entire global network is available for you. So back to talking about us, because I like to talk about us, I want to give you some of the success stories. So if you're familiar with L3 Westcam, Westcam stood for Westinghouse cameras. So that was this product was actually invented on the campus where I work. That turned into this Hollywood success story that won Academy Awards and Emmy Awards, because it turns out that looking for bad people is pretty much the same from a tech perspective as looking for pretty people. You're just looking at, one's driven by people in green and one is driven by crazy, artists, whatnot. Another relationship we have that illustrates the global network is MD5. MD5 is the US National Security Incubator and Accelerator. And we have a collaborative relationship with them. So when we come across a company or a technology that has applications for national security, we collaborate directly with them and we can connect with them. So that theme that we can reach out to whoever it is across the globe, depending on what it is, bring it to life. I was told not to steal Eagle's thunder, but I'm going to give you a couple examples of real life collaboration. So the break-in availability tester that Eagle put together was initiated as a collaboration between Waterloo and Team Eagle. So that's one example where the academics worked in kind of the core hard problem of how do you do the science behind that, and then Eagle as a company took all that core science and moved it into the engineering lab. Within that, there's kind of a lesson is academia is very good at technology development. They're very good at kind of the science. And then once you've got the science figured out, you need to move that into engineering land. And sometimes universities have big engineering faculties and they're appropriate, and sometimes companies do. But when you got to go figure out just how would you do that? How would you solve that fundamental science issue? That's the role of the universities. And then you move it into the next area of the spectrum. Another product that you can see just over here is the RCAM, the runway camera system. That's a Gen 2 sensor. This is an actual current development partnership that is being done between Team Eagle and McMaster Innovation, or actually I shouldn't say McMaster Innovation Park, but one of the tenant companies at the park. So again, I want you to think of these research parks or access to the academic horsepower that exists. Now why is that a problem? Why is that important? Let me suggest to you that we all say, well, we want to bring technologies to life, we want to innovate and all those things. Let me suggest to you that innovation is really hard. I'll talk about an innovation ecosystem. What does it actually look like? What does it mean? Well, this is an innovation ecosystem. Essentially what it says is that you start with an idea and you drive that all the way down to, is it a successful business? But I want you to pay really close attention to the numbers here. For 10,000 ideas that are vetted by a university, 10,000, only 100 are deemed good enough to make it into a company, right? Then this is kind of where we go. From companies that go to startup to the number of companies that are successful, the odds are 1 in 100. 1 in 100 that you're successful. So this is really the realm that we as a researcher, this is the land of universities. This is the land of research parks. How do we move from having a cool idea or a startup, if you will, to successful business with a yield of 1%? We're in aviation. What would happen if only 1 in 100 landings went well? Right? The world would come to a grinding halt. If you were in Toyota and you had a process that only generated 1 in 100 vehicles were successful, what would you do? Would you stop the presses? Or would you say, oh, you just need to do more? So as a community within aviation, our job is to figure out how do we get more successful technologies out there, knowing that these are the odds, and these are just terrible odds. So I would suggest to you, there's only 2 things fundamentally we can do. We can accept a yield of 1%, and we can just put in more ideas, which means for every successful idea, we got to have 10,000 ideas to start with. So that's one model. The other model of success is we can somehow work on this yield. So how do we build an ecosystem? How do we build an environment that allows us to improve a yield of 1%? And that's what I made reference to in the video, which is this notion of a community. And that community is partnerships between businesses, airports, regulatory folks, and whatnot. How do you all surround an idea so it has a better than 1% chance in success. But to do that is a very hard process. I'm going to make an assumption that everybody in this room at one time or the other tried to do something innovative. And let me suggest to you, I'm going to share a story, a video actually. I'm going to suggest that what is it like to be an innovator? So I want you to think about when you embarked upon that process to explore this idea. And I think it looked a little bit like this. Let's see if we go. So this guy here, this guy's here is an innovator. He looks crazy, doesn't he? You know, he's all by himself, standing out there in a field. Crazy. Who would ever want to do that, right? Well, eventually somebody, it's usually a sales executive trying to get beside them and decide, you know what, I'm going to join you, right? But does he look crazy? Lonely up there all by himself, screaming into the wind, dancing like the wild man, right? Well, eventually, after the sale guy joins him, maybe there's a little beverage-driven innovation that goes into the equation to facilitate things. Eventually, hopefully, oh, look at that, somebody else joined. It's probably somebody from marketing. It's definitely not from finance. I can promise you that.
No, not.
Right. It could be advanced engineering is out there. Probably not sustaining engineering, right? Still, it looks crazy, right? Look at that. And eventually people catch on that, hey, that looks crazy, but maybe there's something to it.
So are you going to start this up front?
Yeah. What I'm going to suggest is anybody that's innovation has actually lived through this. The story is over a 3-minute period. He went from a crazy man to he had 30,000 people dancing with him. The entire field starts to dance with him. So what's the lesson here, other than it's crazy to dance? What I'm going to suggest to you is that when you have an idea, whether it's to dance like a crazy person in a field, or you want to bring a runway camera to life, or you want to bring some idea to life, somebody has to be that poor, brave soul. I'll let you imagine how it goes from there. But what I'm going to suggest to you, though, is that the process of innovation isn't just all about having cool technology. Somebody looks at the brilliance of your idea and says, oh my God, I've been waiting this forever. The process of innovation is a lonely process where you have to stand up and share an idea that the rest of the world may not like, may not appreciate. And the courage to do that is something that it takes a long time to build up. And the rest of us, what I would suggest, often play the role of people looking at them and saying, wow, that guy's crazy, or where did you get that idea? What I would suggest is as we build a community that fosters innovation, whether that community is local or on a global basis, is that we have to applaud those crazy dancers. We have to support them, that when somebody comes up there and says, I have this crazy idea, maybe we should use drones for runway inspection. I have a crazy idea that we should use space-based ADS-B. The first person to do it is very much like that crazy dancer. And the question is do we sit on the sidelines and laugh, or do we support them? The trick to making more innovation, the trick to getting that ecosystem to have a better yield than 1%, is the rest of us recognize those innovators that are standing up there and being brave. Now, some ideas are daft and should never go forward, but some ideas are brilliant and need to be supported. And the role of all of us is to see when those ideas come to life, and as a minimum, encourage them. Because, well, I'm going to show the video again. Because the truth is that the path to success, everybody thinks that it's a straight line path, where they had a brilliant idea and you're there. But anybody that has ever done anything related to product design or innovation, or frankly, change in general, knows that the path really looks like this. Right? What happens is that you have an idea, you pursue it for a while, you hit a dead end, and you have to change. And all of these points right, are things that people don't see. They say after the fact, you read the story, it all sounded so brilliant, I had a vision, I ran. That's not life at all. The reality is, going from A to B is wandering around in the woods, banging your head constantly. And in fact, there's a phrase that's been developed. All of these corners are called pivots. Pivots are the common word for failure, right? Because we don't like failures. Pivots means ideas that you thought were brilliant until you banged your head up against reality, and then you change direction. And so the reality is the path to success is you banging your head up a whole bunch of things. And so whether you're dancing or whether you're bringing aviation technologies to life, the trick is to go out there, work with people, realize when they're giving you feedback and you should change direction. If you look at all the technologies you're going to see over the next 36 hours, all of them were developed with an idea that evolved over time. So innovation isn't about having the perfect solution at the time. Innovation is having the courage to step out there and start a journey, and the perseverance and energy to bring it to life. So what is the strategy to do that? So my job, as Paul said in the introduction, is trying to build that innovation ecosystem. I'm going to suggest to you that there's really two things that you want to do. Minimize friction, maximize collision. Minimize friction means all of those things that stand in the way of creative designers and innovators. Get rid of them as much as you can. Whether it's a bureaucracy, whether it's a form that says, please fill out your innovative idea and put it in this suggestion. All of those little things need to be eliminated, whether it's finding partners, finding financing, all of the bureaucracy that stands in the way of ideas, we have to minimize them as maximum as possible. The second is maximize collisions. Collisions are when two or more people meet and share ideas. We are in the theory of collisions colliding right now because I'm gaining ideas from you and you're gaining ideas from there. And as our ideas come together, we collide and have a slightly different direction. So what we want to do is provide an environment where there's minimum friction to people exploring ideas and maximum opportunity where people can come together. And that's something that's referred to, and so in my case, with the bridge, my job is to make it easy for industry to reach into academia, make it easy for research to connect with industry, and provide opportunities for those things to collide. This is a collision zone. And it's something that the economists actually call spatial alchemy. It's the science of how do you get the right mix of the right type of people coming together so that ideas come to life. What I'm going to suggest to you is that the mix of people has to have two dimensions. One is, how do you put researchers together with business people, with regulatory, with finance, and God forbid, even humanities folks? It's that primordial mix of ideas that can actually bring ideas to life. So having a bunch of engineers only talking to engineers will not create innovation, nor providing a bunch of accountants talking to accountants provide innovation. It's when you have the right mix of those things that happen. If you think about a professional team, we talk a lot about hockey. If you had a team entirely made of defensemen, would you win the Stanley Cup? Obviously not. It's the right mix, both in terms of players' capability and size, right? So you know the old analogy that the best team has a few of the senior folks with a bunch of young pups that can skate hard. How do you create that in your environment? So this is one of the areas that I want to pay attention to. A lot of people think that innovation is all about startups. What I want to make really clear is that being entrepreneurial, being innovative is not the sole domain of individual startups or entrepreneurs. A company, no matter how big, can be entrepreneurial. And in fact, I think it's doing a disservice for the rest of us to say, well, you have to go through this process of going from startup to reality that I referred to, right? So this is, this assumes that everything goes in a startup. And I know we have some startups. Sometimes the best way to bring an idea to life is through a startup. Sometimes. I would also argue that sometimes it's the hardest and longest and highest risk way. The other way is to license the technology to a major corporation. Sometimes that's the best way to do it. But sometimes the other way is go to SMEs. Within Canada, and the same is true with the US, the largest employer group is not startups and not large-scale enterprises, but medium-sized companies. companies that are in the range from, say, $10 million to $100 million in top line revenue. Those companies represent the biggest part of the economy. And so if we, as a whole, want to bring ideas to life, that's the biggest opportunity. How do we collaborate with them? So Eagle's a prime example of an SME company that can bring ideas to life. And it's my belief, and I will tell you, it's a major emphasis within the research community, is how do we better support small, medium-sized companies? Because A, they're the most innovative, B, they don't have startup risk, and C, they have a growth imperative. So SMEs with a growth imperative are what universities and research parks are focused on. And that could be an airport. It's not always the biggest airports that's going to be the most innovative. It's going to be the small, medium-sized groups that have an imperative to do something different. What I'm going to suggest is when you have a growth imperative means that you're compelled to grow your company and do something different. I think you need three things. I think you need new markets to generate revenue. I think you need new ideas for your products and services. Right? That idea could be, what is your product? Or that idea could be, how do you manufacture your product? Or how do you sell it? So this first idea is the market. The second need is new ideas. And the third is talent to sell that product into new markets and bring ideas to life. Universities and research parks are not suited to be your market. We're not going to go buy all of your products. But you know what? We can be a source for your ideas, and we can be a source for your talent. And the immortal words of Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So with that, I'd like to suggest that one of the ways that we can improve yield is to have ideas flow from the university academic world into small, medium-sized companies. And if you do that, you skip the startup risk, and that 1% immediately goes into 10%. So my final thought is, this is a slide about luck. So, a lot of people have asked, well, what does it take to be successful? How do you bring an idea to life? Why does one company bring an idea to life, and why does another company not do it? And so I'd like to share this story. Came out of Cambridge University in the UK. So in fact, the School of Business there was actually explored this very fact. They said, gosh, we want to write a paper about, what is a successful company? How do they succeed? So they interviewed all these successful entrepreneurs, Richard Branson's of the world, and they wrote down, tell me what did you do to be successful? And they took all the keywords, and the idea was that they would take all that, apply a bunch of magical software, find the key attributes, and they'd publish it, and you'd have the secret to success. Well, the results were not at all what they expected. In fact, the most common thing that these successful business and entrepreneurs said was, well, they were lucky. And they'd inevitably say, well, I was lucky I met my business partner, and he was a perfect complement to me. Inevitably, they'd say, I got lucky in that, I had a client that believed in me and stuck with me through the hard days. I got lucky, and just at the right time an opportunity came. I was just about to close the doors, and I got lucky in that opportunity. But inevitably, they somehow got lucky. So you can imagine the School of Business at Cambridge was aghast because they couldn't publish a paper that said the secret to entrepreneurial success is luck. So they scratched their head and they said, well, gosh, what should we do? So they did something that universities almost never do, is they went to a different faculty, so the School of Psychology, and they said, could you guys figure out what this luck thing is that is apparently so important for success? So psychology designed an experiment, and that experiment went as follows. So they if you remember back to university, be invited to participate in studies. Well, they invited 2 people, and they said, anybody that considers themselves to be lucky, please apply for this research program. So a bunch of self-declared lucky people lined up. And then using exactly the same thing, they said, anybody that considers themselves to be unlucky, please apply for this research program. So they had another group of self-declared unlucky people. And then they mixed them all up together, all these lucky and unlucky people. And they gave them a task. And this is what the task was. They gave them a newspaper. And they said, you're to count the number of photographs that appear in this newspaper. count the number, and you will be rewarded by speed and accuracy. And so all of them went in on a one by one. And when you open the newspaper on page 3, in big writing was the words, "Stop counting, there are 42 photographs in this paper." And when you went to page 11, there was another, it said, "No, really, stop counting, there are 42 photographs in this paper." And then they looked at the results. And amazingly, what they found was the lucky people were much faster and more accurate. It turns out that 42 was the right answer. But what had happened when they did the study is the lucky people either saw the first or second clue, and they had the courage to stand up and say, "You know what, I'm going to take a risk. The answer is 42, and they got the right answer, and they were faster. The unlucky people fell into 2 categories. Either they were so myopic, looking at the pictures, that they didn't read and look at what was going on, that they didn't even see the clues. Or they saw it, and they thought it was a trick, and they said, "I'm not going to follow the trick." And because they were manually counting, they, more than anybody else, got the wrong answer. So the unlucky people were slower and less accurate in this study. So I think within that, there's a lesson for all of us, is the secret of luck is to keep your eyes open for opportunities, whether it's technology opportunities, partnership opportunities, business opportunities. And when those opportunities knock, to have the courage and open the door and take a chance.